What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson, and the 2025 season inches closer day by day. The Giants wrapped up OTAs last week. They're starting mandatory minicamp tomorrow, so we get some more practice reports over the next coming days. But as you all know, we've been keeping a close eye on specific players who are entering somewhat of make or break seasons. We've got some players who are entering final years of rookie contracts, looking for extensions, but also some veterans who are entering the final years of their current contracts that could be extension candidates. And that's what we want to focus on in today's episode. Who could the Giants extend between now and the start of the regular season? Who should they extend? Who should they let walk? We're going to go through some of those guys in those final years of their deals and talk about why they should or shouldn't be extended. And namely, we want to give some praise to Jermaine Eluemunor, who's been a consummate professional since he's been here. He's been great with the fans, engaging on social media with fans. He's been a great locker room leader, and he's a player who kind of went through it last year, signed on to be a right tackle, played right tackle. Andrew Thomas goes down with an injury. He doesn't say a peep, just flips over to the left side of the ball and still plays some pretty good football. So really like Jermaine Eluemunor, love what he brings to the team in so many different ways. So I want to focus on him and talk about why I think the Giants should go ahead and extend him, but also a few other players as well. And of course, today, very happy to be joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And how are you feeling about some of these Giants players entering these extension periods?
Doing pretty good sir. And yeah, the Giants do have some players that they have to, I guess, figure out what the future looks like for them. And you guys know, Jermaine Eluemunor has been my guy since the second we picked him up as a free agent last year. We pinpointed him as a player that was really underrated coming from the Raiders. And obviously Carmen Brasillo had a lot of experience with him. And Eluemunor was probably our best offensive line player last year after Andrew Thomas went down. He played solid right tackle. And then they asked him to go play left tackle, a spot that he is not very familiar with. And he looked competent, right? That is pretty hard to do. And I think that Eluemunor is like you said, the consummate competitor. The guy just shows up. He's tough. He's aggressive. He speaks out. He's confident. And he kind of is the epitome of what a Giant should be like. That toughness, we've lacked it all across the entire roster for the last couple of seasons. Eluemunor was one of those guys that toughed it out. And I really think that this is a guy I would like to keep long term. The Giants have money. I know next year, if you look at the cap space, they only have like $10-13 million, and mainly because we pushed a lot of money into next season. But you can always structure a contract to kick in the second year, where the Giants have like over 100 mil in 2027. So not a big deal if the Giants want to do some stuff to keep cap hits low next year, and they'll obviously offload some contracts and open up some money and restructures. So not too concerned on that front. Going to the Jackson Dart and moving on from any quarterbacks you're spending any sort of money on, you're going to have money to spend long term. So pretty encouraged by what the Giants have done financially. Jermaine Eluemunor, I know I want to see what he does this year. Obviously, he wants to get an extension. He's now 30 years old, or maybe closer to 31. He's not going to get a big time deal. Like, he's already past the kind of threshold of like big time offensive tackle contracts. He's not a future Hall of Famer. He's not this monster player, but he's a good, competent, serviceable player. And those are hard to come by. He's a very underrated player is what I would say. I think he wants to play this season out, knowing he's looking for a longer term deal. But I would give him, at 31, I don't know, maybe I'd give him a 2-year extension, maybe $10 million per season, 2 years, $20 million. I feel like that's $3 million more than he's making now. Give him a nice guaranteed package, and maybe that's enough to get him signed. I really like Eluemunor. We've had such a big problem finding a solution at right tackle. We finally have one. Let's not create another hole. Let's spend a little money to make sure that hole is filled and we don't have another liability, unless we have a draft pick that can solve it. But by then, we should know what happens with him. What is your thought right now? It seems like the Giants aren't rushing into any extensions. I think Eluemunor wants to play out this season so he can get a longer term deal. But I would say a 2-year, $20 million deal seems reasonable. But again, players are getting paid a lot of money these days.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that money is really the big question mark here for Jermaine Eluemunor. Like, what kind of contract is he looking for? Starting right tackles make quite a bit of money right now in the NFL. And there used to be a big discrepancy between how much left tackles get paid versus right tackles. Not so much anymore, because there's so much great pass rushing talent around the league that right tackles are just as valuable in terms of their contractual price tags as left tackles. So for Eluemunor, it only makes sense to play out the next year of his deal and aim to get an extension in 2026 or get a big bag from another team in free agency. But from the perspective of the New York Giants, get him while you still can, right? Try your best to extend him sooner rather than later, because let's say he does have another really good, valuable 2025 campaign, then his price tag in 2026 is going to go up. And then the price tag that you mentioned of 2 years, 20 million, maybe it ends up being 2 years, 30 million. And then that might push outside of the New York Giants price range. So right now, if 2 years, 20 million sounds kind of attractive to Jermaine Eluemunor, and that's a deal that he might sign, I think that's a deal that if I were the New York Giants, I would absolutely offer and get him signed down for, because they just signed him to 2 years, 14 million, $7 million per season. It was a great deal for, at the time, a tackle who was a fringe starter for the Giants. Like, we figured he would probably be the starting right tackle, but was kind of competing there. And throughout his career prior to last season, has started here, started there, but has moved around the offensive line and hasn't been a true starting right tackle. Now he is with the New York Giants, and he's going to want to be paid that way. But I do think that before he has potentially another great 2025 season, the Giants should try and get him signed and extended. I really like Jermaine Eluemunor. I think he really did a great job stabilizing things on that offensive line last year, especially considering he flipped to the other side of the line when Andrew Thomas went down. And I also think the fact that he has the ability to do that, and the fact that Andrew Thomas has been so injury prone, adds even more value to Jermaine Eluemunor and makes him even more of a player that the Giants should rush to extend and get him under contract for the foreseeable future. They did sign some extra offensive tackles this offseason, Stone Forsythe, James Hudson III, but those are backup guys that I pray to God we don't see on the regular season field this year, Alex. I don't want to see James Hudson out there protecting Russell Wilson's blind side at any point. If anything, I would rather Jermaine Eluemunor flip back to left tackle once again, but because he has the versatility and ability to do that, he really is valuable to this Giants team. And I do think he recognizes that and knows what his worth is and is going to be seeking a contract. So if the Giants can get him signed sooner rather than later, I think that they should before his price tag continues to increase. Before Eluemunor, the smart play would be to play out the final year of this deal and then try and bank on a big contract from the Giants or elsewhere in 2026, although he's got to stay healthy for that as well. So we'll see how it shapes out with him. Definitely interested to monitor Jermaine Eluemunor and see if the Giants do try to extend him. But some of the other players that the Giants have entering contract years, you have Micah McFadden as well. And I've talked about this before on the channel, Alex. This is the premium, like the perfect candidate for an extension for the New York Giants, because you're talking about a player who through the first 3 seasons of his career, every single season has made progress, has gotten better, has developed. And that's also considering there's been injuries to him and to the players around him. There's been scheme changes. He's found a way to battle through and just improve his game incrementally every single season of his career. And now he's at a point where he is one of the true foundational starters on this Giants defense. And if he has another improved 2025 season, plays a bigger role, then the price tag that you could potentially sign him at right now is only going to increase. And the Giants have a lot of money already poured into this defense. The defensive line has a ton of money poured into it. They're already paying $10 million per season to Bobby Okereke. If you wait another year for Micah McFadden, another year of development, his price tag next year might push beyond $10 million, but right now it's probably beneath that zone. So I think that Micah McFadden, as a homegrown talent, former 5th-round pick, young up-and-coming player, I think he's still only 25 years old, this is the guy that I want the Giants to rush to lock down as soon as possible. Alex, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on potentially extending Micah McFadden.
I think that would be a fine idea. And the reason I say that is linebackers aren't really that expensive. You can get a pretty solid linebacker for 8 to 10 million, but McFadden is ascending. He's aggressive. He gets into the defensive backfield, as you mentioned, or rather the offensive backfield. And, you know, I like his instincts. I think he's a good weak side linebacker. And also the Giants need to do more to retain their own players. You know what I mean? We've let so many good pieces, players on the ascent, go. And leaders in that locker room, right? Xavier McKinney is a perfect example of a guy that was ascending. He had an amazing season last season, and the Giants said nope, and then we went and spend the money anyway on Javon Holland this year, who's coming off a bad season. So it's like, you know, you can't take 2 steps forward and then 3 steps backward, or even a step backward and then try to get ahead of yourself. The Giants keep shooting themselves in the foot when it comes to retaining their own talent. And I think that McFadden's one of those guys that his best football is ahead of him. I love his instincts. I think he's super aggressive. He's going to be fun to watch in this system. He's rallies to the football. He forces fumbles. He's tough as nails. I know he's gotten hurt a couple times, but I like his play style. And the Giants need more guys with that type of character that are just going to lay their body on the line to make a play. And, tough and will, stuff runners in the hole and have literally no F's given is his approach. So, I do think that extending him would a good move because it's going to be at a nominal cost because he hasn't really proved himself yet, but his best days are ahead of him. It's the type of player the Giants signed in free agency this offseason. You know, Paulson Adebo, has he proved himself yet? His best football might be still ahead of him coming off a big injury. Javon Hollins proved himself, but he's coming off a down season. Like, McFadden is one of those guys that I actually think like is an Eluemunor type of player, underrated, but still has his best days ahead of him potentially. So, obviously different age, different position, but I do think that the Giants love those value grabs, and McFadden to me feels like a value grab, and he's still on the team and he's still a Giant, and you need to retain some of your draft picks. I think that's in the best interest of the organization.
Totally agreed with that. How many times have we complained on this show or had fans complain to us about the Giants not retaining homegrown talent and then that talent going elsewhere, breaking out and becoming superstar players, right? So for the Giants, I don't want to see that happen with Mike McFadden because he's essentially established himself as a core piece of this defense. Retain that core piece. He's a homegrown talent. He's young and he's really developed. That's the perfect player to hand an extension to. I feel like at times the Giants will hand extensions to guys that maybe deserve it, but maybe kind of don't. Daniel Jones. But this is a player who has grinded from a former 5th round pick into a starting level caliber player on this defense and a core piece of it. That's the kind of guy that you want to reward with a long-term extension, in my opinion. And honestly, if the Giants want to give him a 3, 4, 5-year deal, whatever, I think he's earned it. And I think at least a 3-year deal, whether that's paying him $8 million per season, whatever, it's going to be cheaper now than it is next year based on the trajectory that he's been on throughout his career. And the New York Giants would save $1.8 million in 2025 cap space if they do extend Michael McFadden, which I think is another incentive to get that deal done ASAP, considering how tight the Giants are up against the salary cap. But another pick from that 2022 draft class, Alex, a guy that we've talked a lot about, we really do like, but he's been underutilized. Yeah, it's Wan'Dale Robinson. The little guy across the middle of the field who gets a bunch of short 5-yard receptions for the Giants offense, but a very important piece of the team. What's your long-term outlook for him, though, Alex? Because as a slot receiver, he's not necessarily a WR2, even though he was in terms of targets last year. And to me, out of the 3 players that we're discussing with Eluemunor, McFadden, and now Robinson, if I have to be comfortable letting any of them walk, it probably would be Wan'Dale Robinson. And it's not because of any flaw in Robinson's game, but rather I just want this Giants ceiling or this Giants offense to reach for a higher ceiling. I want there to be a WR1 in Neighbors and a WR2 and a guy who is a WR1, basically. Like, I want the 1A, 1B. And if you allocate that money, if he ends up getting Khalil Shakir money, for example, $13 million per season, if Robinson commands that, that's going to inhibit the Giants' ability to actually bring in a WR1B for Malik Neighbors. So it's almost like I'm willing to sacrifice Wan'Dale Robinson in order to reach for a higher ceiling on offense, however that might look. But again, we'll have to see what the market dictates next offseason, who's available and everything like that. But I'll just say Robinson, despite having a breakout season last year, putting up career high yards, scoring some touchdowns, whatever, not a priority extension candidate for me personally, but definitely curious to hear if you agree or differ from that opinion.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Wan'Dale is going to be a lesser piece of this offense this season simply because the Giants are going to open up the offense to be more downfield oriented. Like, he should be less of an option. And I think that that's a good thing because you don't want to be giving your slot receiver 130 targets, right? Like, that is a problem. It's not an answer. It's a problem. Unless you're Amon-Ra St. Brown or one of the better slot receivers in the NFL. Robinson's role was get the ball out fast, target this guy because we can't protect the quarterback and our quarterback can't read the field. Like, he was just a hot route a lot of times. So I hope that his role diminishes because it means the Giants are getting the ball downfield to Neighbors, getting the ball downfield to Slayton, to Hyatt, to getting it to Theo Johnson, using the running backs more effectively. In a good world for the Giants, Wan'Dale becomes less of an influence. And I think that's should tell you where the offense will go. I still like Wan'Dale Robinson, but the thing is, I see him more as like a very specific role player. I think that, like they'll try to get him involved downfield a little bit more, but he's so small that his success rate downfield is still going to be low. Even if they do target him, I like his toughness and stuff like that. But his catch rate is just so small. He is your slant guy. He is your crossing route guy. He is like that short option for you, chain mover. I think for a offense, he can be a good contributor, but he shouldn't be your WR2. Like, he shouldn't be getting that many targets. He should be an insurance policy. He should be a security blanket for your quarterback, or a guy that gets the ball on first down and gets you a couple extra yards, maybe some bubble screens. Like, he should be a weapon that's used with design and not just liberally. Like the Giants use Wan'Dale Robinson like he was a WR1 last year at times with the targets. You know what I mean? Like obviously Neighbors was the top guy, but with the targets, like he got WR1 level targets last season. And like that is not what a player like him should be getting. Like they should be designed plays that maximize his skill set, not, hey, here, take the ball because we can't get it to anybody else because our offensive line can't block. So, you know, if the decision here, and what she said before, if the Giants have to sacrifice Wan'Dale Robinson to get a better receiver, I'm absolutely down to let Robinson go. But if the Giants are like, we want to draft a guy like in the second round or even use their first round pick on a receiver, I'm fine keeping Wan'Dale and just making the unit stronger, right? Like, but obviously like they would have to go into the draft with the intention of spending valuable capital on a receiver. So I think it'll be something that we discuss next year and have a little bit more of an idea of where we want to go with this. And I have to see how they use him. I have to see if he stays healthy. I have to see if his role expands. I like him. I'm okay with the idea of extending him, but I'm not going to force it if the Giants can upgrade in free agency using that money, or at least, you know, allocate it towards an upgrade. Or, you know, extending him and then drafting someone to pair with Neighbors. I'm also cool with that. But you still have Slayton on a 3-year deal now. So, you know, you still have that resource. But Wan'Dale's an interesting one. I think that his role should diminish naturally, but I think that he will be used more strategically and probably will be more effective with the way they use him.
Yeah, honestly, if the Giants receiving core going into 2026 is once again Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, and Wan'Dale Robinson, I would be disappointed. I'd probably be crying like the baby in the background. I would want to see a higher ceiling for this offense and see some more superstar talent in this New York Giants receiving core. Because right now, I feel like this offense is good enough, right? Like I think this receiving core is good enough. Obviously, we need to see the way it performs with this upgraded quarterback room. We think that's going to pay dividends. We think Russell Wilson is going to be able to maximize some of this talent, and we'll see some growth from all of these receivers, Neighbors included, which is crazy considering how good he was last year. They can be even better this year with a good quarterback throwing him the ball. But even still, don't want to see this offense be limited by perceived lack of high-end talent in that receiving core, because they've got high-end talent with Neighbors, but outside of that, I like Darius Slayton. I'm a big Darius Slayton guy, but is he the true WR2 that we really want? Maybe not. Is Wan'Dale Robinson that? Probably not. So I don't know. I would like to see a higher ceiling for this team, but really excited to see what Wan'Dale does in a contract year. Maybe he's got that fire underneath him and he really performs well. I know that he had a lot of high praise that we've talked about for Russell Wilson and envisions a much better season moving forward. And, you know, I'm hoping that we do see that from him. But 3 players, that's it. We want to talk about for the extension candidates. I think all 3 of these guys are really interesting to monitor going into this year. There's other players as well, like Evan Neal. Will he become a low-key extension candidate after a good season at guard if he gets some playing time? Not entirely likely, but I don't think we can rule it out either if he does find his way into the starting lineup at some point. I think Kayvon Thibodeau does have the 5th-year option, so he's under contract for 2026, but obviously somewhat of a contract year for him with him being such a tradable piece. Let's see how he performs in 2025, and definitely some other players from that 2022 class to keep an eye on. So it's going to be really fun. It's going to be interesting, but like I said, mini camp starts tomorrow, so they'll be back on the practice field. We'll get some more takeaways, and then next month, training camp, pads will come on, and things will really start to hit the fan, and we'll get a lot of excitement drumming up for the 2025 season. So all that and more right here on Fireside Giants. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you're new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. Listen to Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.
Perfect.